I skinned my knee yesterday, and I'm not talking about a regular skin. Matter of fact, let me stand up and show you this nonsense. Kneecap in the camera. Yes. Oh my gosh. It feels as bad as it looks. So I can't even sit on the floor like I want to sit on the floor. I have to sit in a chair today because it hurts to bend my knee. So stay to the end if you'd like to hear how I managed to get that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful skin knee, because I'll tell you at the end. Hi there, how are you today? I hope you're having an amazing day. Welcome back to my channel if you're back. If you are new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna, and I have another true crime case for you today. This one is an unsolved case, and unsolved cases just don't sit right in my spirit because I feel like I need closure. I need to know what happened. I need to know that everything was resolved. But this one is unsolved, but it is so notorious and a well-known case that I really dived into it, and I really wanted to figure out exactly what the ins and outs were of this case. So that is exactly what I did today. We will be talking about the Zodiac Killer. And for those of you who are familiar, there is a whole bunch of information that goes into this case. So for that reason, since my videos tend to be around a certain length, I'm going to keep it as clear and concise and to the point as I can, while also hopefully bringing you all of the important information in the case. If there's anything that you know about this case or any speculation that you have about this case, please let me know down below. I'd love to hear what you think. But without further ado, let's get started. On December 20th of 1968, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were on their first date in Valencia, California. The two were high school students and very excited to spend the evening together. They were super excited for this date, and they were trying to figure out exactly what they wanted to do with the evening, but they ended up finalizing their plans to be a stop at a friend's house and then dinner. And after dinner, they were going to go down to Lake Herman Road. So all of this went smoothly. Their date's going well. You know, they're vibing, they're talking. They're in the car at Lake Herman Road. And for those of you who are familiar with like a lover's lane, or you know, that place in every town that high school students kind of go and chill at, and you know, kiss and talk and listen to music, picture something like that. That's exactly what Lake Herman Road was. So for them to go in the middle of the night or late at night, it wasn't that odd. Now for the date, David drove, and he brought his mother's car for the date. He was excited to take Betty Lou out, so he drove, he picked her up. Everything was going great. So when they got down to Lake Herman Road, they're sitting there and a car pulls up beside them, but they don't really think anything of it. Car pulls up beside them, they notice the car, but they're still doing their own kind of thing. But the person who is in the car gets out and walks over to them and orders the both of them to get out right away. And as David tries to get out of the car, he is fatally shot in the head, and then Betty Lou was also shot. It seems as though she saw that David was being attacked, so she attempted to run, and the assailant shot her 5 times in the back. Both of them died on the scene. This all happened around 11 p.m. on that night in December, and shortly thereafter, police did discover their bodies, and they had absolutely no leads to go on. They didn't know who could be this person who would do something so terrible. It was generally considered a very safe area. So they are starting from scratch, but they do begin to investigate to hopefully bring justice for the death of Betty Lou and David Faraday. So some time goes by, and police have absolutely nothing. They haven't figured out who the person was who committed the crimes of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, and they're kind of losing speed in the investigation. But as far as they know, it was a one-time attack, and they're not expecting that anything will happen again. But of course, on July 4th of 1969 in Vallejo, California, which is only about 4 miles away from where the first murders took place, there's a young couple named Darlene Farron and Michael Maggio who were sitting in their car in Blue Rock Springs Park, which, picture just, you know, a dark area. It's nighttime and there's not really many people around. They're relaxing in their car when another car comes up to them and it just pulls up next to them. But then it drives off. So they don't really think much of it. They're like, okay, who is this strange person driving this car? But they don't really think much of it until the car comes back 10 minutes later, at which point the person gets out of the vehicle. They have a flashlight and a gun, and they walk up to the door. They shine it inside of the car on the passenger side, and they start shooting. They shoot 5 times into the car. So Darlene and Michael are just getting shot after shot. Some of the shots were so severe that they went through Michael and into Darlene. After the first 5 shots, the assailant starts walking away because he thinks that both of them are dead, but Michael is still conscious and he's like moaning and groaning. So the person comes back and shoots 2 more shots into both of them. At 12:40 a.m. that night, police receive a call from a payphone from a man who basically says that there was a murder that happened and that he was responsible for it, and he also claimed responsibility for the murder back at Lake Herman of Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. Police rushed down right away to where the call came from, but there was no sign of the man who made the phone call, and they pretty much had still nothing to go on. So this was extremely frustrating for them. Darlene was pronounced dead at the hospital, but Michael somehow survived this crazy attack, and he was able to describe the man to police. And he described the man to be in his late 20s, around 200 pounds, and 5'8" with short, light brown curly hair. So pretty general, right? A lot of people may fall under that description, but at least it was something. There was someone who was able to live and tell the story of what had happened. And the fact that these murders were so similar, the murder of Darlene and then Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were so similar to couples late at night, out on a date, you know, quick, short to the point, shooting, and then he leaves. They both had the same MO. So police had no reason to doubt that the person who called in was telling the truth about being the same assailant that murdered Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday. About a month later, on August 1st of 1969, the killer wrote 3 letters into 3 different newspaper outlets in Northern California, and pretty much all 3 of the letters were identical, but each one contained 1/3 of a cryptogram, or basically picture like a coded message. They all contained that, 3 different versions that were combined to make one. And what he said when he wrote into the newspaper outlets was that he demanded that they publish the cryptogram on the front page of their next edition, and if they didn't, then he would go on a murder spree that next weekend and murder 12 people. So the police actually didn't believe that this was real. The police actually thought this was a hoax, and that whoever wrote this letter was just trying to stir up something and get attention for something that they actually didn't do. So the police actually put out a public message saying, hey, if this is actually who you are, then write another letter, give us a little more detail, and prove that this is actually you, kind of taunting the person a little bit to see if they would actually get mad. They were basically trying to get him riled up so he would write back. But even though the police didn't believe that this was the actual person who committed the murders, the newspaper outlets were feeling a huge ton of pressure, which you can imagine. They're like, this is an immense weight on our shoulders right now, because if we don't follow this person's directions and they are actually the person who committed the murders, then we have all the blood on our hands of the people that they might actually kill if they followed through with their threat. So the newspaper outlets were like, okay, this is a huge decision. And 2 of them decided that they weren't going to publish in their next edition. But one actually did, and they published on the 4th page of the edition that came out the very next day. And next to it, they did also publish the police statement that they didn't believe that this was something that should be believed. But the newspaper outlet basically was like, look, at least we put something in the paper, so hopefully that keeps that guy from doing something crazy. The name of that news outlet is called The Chronicle, and they did receive more correspondence from this person later down the line, but they were the first actual newspaper outlet to publish their 1/3 of the cryptogram. 6 days after the first letters were received, the San Francisco Examiner, which is another news outlet, received another letter from the person who was claiming to be the murderer. And he basically said, look, when you solve my cryptogram, you will know who I am, because there is a full disclosure of my identity. But not only that, he also included very specific details about the murders that only police had known. They hadn't released any of this information to the public. So he basically flexed his muscles and said, oh, you don't think it was me? Okay, well, here's all the information that I know, without actually telling the police who he was. So at this this point, they're like, okay, maybe this actually is our guy and maybe we should take him a little bit more seriously. In this second letter, he opened up by saying, "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking." And from that point on, he was named the Zodiac Killer by police, by people who knew about the case. Everyone was referring to him, the media, as the Zodiac Killer, and he has held that same exact coined name ever since he has never been found. But let's keep going. On August 8th, within 1 week of the first cryptograms being published in the paper, a couple actually was able to crack the code. So apparently it wasn't that difficult for the cryptogram to be transcribed, and they cracked the code. They figured out exactly what he said, and he pretty much said a whole bunch of nothing. He had some quotes in there from The Most Dangerous Game, and he said basically that he was collecting slaves for the afterlife. So the people that he were killing were going to be his slaves in the afterlife, and that he was never going to tell them who he actually was, and it was all just a game. He basically hit him with the "ha, got him."
Got him! Got him!
So after playing in the police's face like a bunch of fools, he continues to wreak havoc on the community. On September 27th of 1969, two college students named Brian Hartwell and Cecilia Shepard were out. They were having a picnic that day, and they were actually at Lake Berryessa is what it was called. And they're out sitting down, just looking out and enjoying the scenery, and they notice that this person is walking up to them. He's probably about 170 pounds, 5'11", but he has on an executioner style hood with clip-on sunglasses to cover his eyes, and he also has something that is basically a bib or something hanging from his neck that has a circle and cross kind of symbol going, you know, on the front of it. So first of all, before I even continue, why would anyone be walking around in public looking like this and not be stopped or questioned about what they're doing and where they're going and what they plan to do when they get there? Like, I don't know, it just blows my mind, but I digress. Let's keep going. The man tells the two of them that he recently escaped from prison and he was on the run, so he needed to steal their car from them. Sounds like a very respectful way to steal a car. He walks up and basically says, "Look, this is what's happening, so I'm here to mentally prepare you." And then at this point, he pulls out some rope that he actually had. It was already cut into shorter length pieces. He gives it to Cecilia and he tells her to tie up Brian, and then after she ties up Brian, he tightens, of course, the bond because she didn't do it that tight, and then he ties her up, and then he proceeds to stab them repeatedly. He stabs Cecilia 10 times, and Brian was stabbed a total of 6 times. And after he committed this terrible, terrible crime, he went over to Brian's car and wrote on the door, basically he wrote the dates of the first, second, and now third murders. And he also indicated police that, you know, he was the Zodiac and that he had struck again. So this was very clearly another taunt to the police of, look what I can do, you are unable to catch me. A man who was actually fishing with his son nearby heard people screaming, and he and his son ran over to see what on earth was going on, and they were able to flag down some park rangers, and police came and ambulance came, and they took the two of them into custody rather. And Cecilia actually died at the hospital 2 days later. She kind of went into a coma and never came back from it, and Brian ended up surviving, which was completely crazy because of the terrible attack that he had suffered. But he was able to explain to police what he had saw, what he thought the man's physique looked like, and, you know, basically exactly what happened. And he tells the media and he tries to spread awareness about exactly what he and Cecilia had suffered. 27 miles from the crime scene, but like within a mile of the sheriff's office, they get a call. The sheriff's office gets a call from a payphone, and on the other end is the man who is claiming to have committed this double homicide, and he basically confesses to the crime without giving his name, and he flees. Just another extremely frustrating obstacle because police literally had a fresh handprint on this payphone, and they lifted it, they saw it, they could see that it was a very clear handprint, but unfortunately they had absolutely no one to attribute it to. 2 weeks later, on the night of October 11th, 1969, there is a San Francisco cab driver who's just doing his normal rounds. He's waiting for people to pick up who might need rides somewhere, and he ends up picking up a white male who asked to be taken somewhere. I think it's called Presidio Heights is where he was trying to go in San Francisco, and Paul Stine is like, sure, okay, no problem. You know, he starts driving, he takes him in the direction that he is looking to go. But as he's in the driver's seat, the passenger shoots him in the head. And this gunshot, unfortunately, was fatal because Paul Stine pretty much died right away. And before leaving the scene, the assailant stole his wallet, his keys, and ripped a portion of his shirt off, his bloody shirt, to take with him. He then wipes down the car and then flees the scene on foot. And there actually happened to be 3 teenagers who were not far away from where this entire thing took place, who saw the entire thing, and they call into police right away. Now, there are 2 police who were only a couple blocks away who end up responding to the call, and as they're driving toward the scene of the crime, they see a white male walking kind of in the opposite direction. He's walking with a purpose, he's walking pretty quick, but they actually take a second and focus on him just because they know that they have to keep their eyes out. But the person on the dispatch told the police that they were looking for a black male when the 3 teenagers very clearly said that it was a white male. So nobody really knows what got lost in translation there or why the dispatcher said that it was a black male. But that is the reason that the police, when they saw this white male walking away from the scene, did not stop him, because they were under the impression that they were looking for a black male. But what's extremely frustrating about this is that that was the Zodiac Killer. Everyone is sure that that was the Zodiac Killer. Obviously, there's no way to prove that it was the Zodiac Killer, but someone walking in the opposite direction of the scene in the middle of the night, walking with a purpose, it was almost certainly the Zodiac Killer, and he slipped right underneath them. Just absolutely disheartening and frustrating, right? The murder of Paul Stine was initially believed to be basically a carjacking or a robbery gone wrong, and police were pretty sure that this, had nothing to do with the other murders. But what do they get? They get a letter not long after the murder of Paul Stine, basically saying, this is the Zodiac and it was me. And not only do they get that, you guys, this person, this man, the Zodiac, sent in, remember I told you that he ripped off a portion of Paul Stine's shirt? He sends in a little piece of bloody shirt that belonged to Paul Stine in with the letter as proof that he was not to be played with and that he was in fact the Zodiac Killer. And of course, as you might imagine, police are infuriated at this point because it's been almost a year of this nonsense and they still have not figured out who this person is. They're extremely frustrated, but they end up working with the 3 witnesses, the 3 teenagers, to create a composite sketch because the man had no cloaks on, no hoods on, no glass. Like, they were able to clearly create a composite sketch, which was awesome, and it was able to give people at least something to go on as far as what this person looked like. On October 14th of 1969, the Chronicle received another letter from the Zodiac, threatening school children this time. This fool said that he would shoot out the front tires and pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. Just absolutely sick, yo. 5 days later, on October 20th, the Zodiac calls into the Oakland Police Department with more unwarranted threats and confessions of nothing, basically, of identifying who he was. And not long after that, actually on November 8th, the Zodiac mailed another cryptogram. This one contained 340 characters, and this cryptogram wasn't solved for 51 years, you guys. 51 years. It was literally just cracked last year in 2020, and it was a huge groundbreaking moment when they were able to figure out exactly what this cryptogram said. It actually was verified by the FBI as well, so the people who were able to figure out what it said were right, and they confirmed that that is exactly what it was reading. But unfortunately, it had absolutely nothing but nonsense in it again. So even though the Zodiac claimed that when people figured out what his cryptograms read, they would know exactly who he was just lying. It was just all a goose chase. It was all just, to get people riled up and to basically brag and keep people on the edge of their seats about what he had done. But it had absolutely nonsense, just rambling about whatever, nothing basically. And it absolutely does not give us still any idea of who this person was. The Zodiac sent 2 more letters in November of 1969, one of which, you guys, remember I told you how the dispatch misidentified the race of the man who was at the scene of Paul Stine's murder? Well, the Zodiac basically confirms that. So he says in this letter that police literally made eye contact with him, saw him walking away from the scene, and they didn't get him. He's bragging. He's like, I was right under your nose and you still didn't get me. You guys are never going to catch me. And it confirmed the hunch that the police had, that maybe this person actually had something to do with it, once they found out that the 3 teens actually told the dispatch that it was a white male, but the dispatch told them that it was a black male. So when they got this letter, they knew that they saw him and that they literally had him within 100 feet, and they just let him walk away. Just absolutely crazy, right? Several other murders and attacks took place over the next year or so after this point in the 1970s, and the Zodiac does take credit for some of them, but they haven't been able to confirm that he actually is responsible for all of these. And some of the names include Robert Domingos, Sherry Jo Bates, Donna Lass, and Kathleen John. So those are just a few that people think may be associated with the Zodiac. Over the months of 1971, the Zodiac sent various letters and confessions and threats and things, but none of them have actually been linked to the Zodiac himself. He went quiet for a few years, and then his final letter was sent in January of 1974, in which he claimed that he had murdered a total of 37 people. Throughout the late 1970s, there were many phony letters sent, people who were writing into news outlets and police stations claiming that they were the Zodiac, but police pretty much ruled all of them out to be phony, to be people who were just trying to get some, sort of attention or get people riled up again. But the actual last letter that has been confirmed to be from the Zodiac was the one that was sent in January of 1974. There have been many suspects that the public have identified as who they think may have been responsible, including some notorious serial killers who actually were found guilty of other deaths. But there is one particular man who police believe to be the person from day one. And the only reason I don't want to say his name is because I feel like if he was found innocent, then there's no point in continuing to bring his name up and tarnish his family name. Like, he did a lot of kind of messed up stuff as far as like just Zodiac almost worshiping, you would think, and there were dead animals found in his trailer. There was some strange things. He told his friends he wanted to kill people. I'm not saying that he was a good guy, but I'm saying that he was found innocent and not to be related at all to the Zodiac Killer. So there's no point in me even diving into him, but you can find information about him on other channels. Is basically the one main suspect in all of this. But it's just extremely frustrating because it was never solved, you guys. It's been so many years. There are still police to this day who are trying to figure out who the Zodiac Killer was, and I'm sure that one day they will be able to. But it's just crazy to think about, like, all the DNA that was probably left at the crime scene, all the DNA that was probably, I'm sure, on the letters. Like, there's no way that this man wrote so many letters and there was no traces of DNA on there. I'm sure that there were, but maybe whoever he was, maybe he just lived such a secluded life that he never made contact with police and never had his DNA in the system. But this case just is unsettling, right? It's kind of weird when there's no conclusion, there's no finalization. It's just like, okay, well, that's that. 5 people confirmed to be killed by him, and yep, that's all, folks. Like, I hate that. I can't stand that. I wonder if he's still alive to this day. If he was in his late 20s, let's say he was 30 in 1970, that would make him 30, 60, in his 80s today, right? So the chance of him still being alive, I guess, is slim to none. I would imagine that he probably died after that last letter he wrote in 1974, because he was getting so much glory out of writing these letters and so much notoriety that he was just eating up, that I can't imagine that he would have just stopped on his own, I can't imagine that. All right, you guys, so now it's time to get down to business. We got to talk about this skin knee that I have on myself today. The train felt like going by, so I guess we're just gonna wait until she's done. Yo, all right, y'all, it's finally gone. So now it's time to talk about this. I'm walking down the street, and you know how in the city on the sidewalk sometimes they'll have trees and I'll have a section of the sidewalk cut out for the tree. I guess my ankle, the cut off from the tree, and the concrete was right here, and my ankle said whoop, it said whack, and I went down, hard, and I'm too big to be falling in these streets, literally.
She bends her ankle.
Oh, I was so mortified at first, but my friend was just the nicest person about what happened. I just couldn't believe it. I took the wedges off. I changed into some shorter heels. I was like, look, I love being cute, but clearly these are far more hazardous than I initially anticipated. And maybe I need to do a little bit more practice walking on the city sidewalks before I attempt to do that again. But luckily it was only like 3 people who saw it, aside from the person I was with. So, it is what it is. I actually didn't even feel that embarrassed. I was talking to my mom about it this morning, and she was like, oh my God, that is so embarrassing. I was like, no, it's not that embarrassing. I feel like if you're with somebody and you're with friends and family that make you feel comfortable, even if other people see it, it just changes your perspective. It makes you feel like, okay, I look like a big fool, but life goes on. Everybody looks like a fool sometimes. So take those moments and learn from them. What did I learn? I learned not to wear wedges on city streets, or to walk much more carefully on city streets and watch where I'm walking. So next time you feel embarrassed, or you feel disheartened, or you feel discouraged from something that happened, that you did, or that happened to you, instead of feeling embarrassed, think about maybe how you can do things a little bit differently to get a different result next time, okay? But that's where I'm gonna wrap it up. I have a lot of editing to do on this video, so I'm super excited to do that and to get it posted for you guys. I'll be back next week at some point. The goal is Sunday, but it'll be someday. But you know what I'm gonna say, if you made it this far, you are loyal. You really are, and I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I'll see you then. Have a great day. Hope you have a great morning or evening or afternoon, depending on what time it is when you see this video. All right, I'm done. Peace.